Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Get Paid for Your Pad. Today I am here with Joe Anhalt. He is from Chicago and he's going to share his experiences with Airbnb with us. And I am in Amsterdam and it's been beautiful weather. Joe, how's Chicago?
It's actually quite beautiful today. The sun is shining. It's about 70 degrees and it's a beautiful Sunday.
Awesome. Well, soon enough it'll get pretty cold there.
Yes, unfortunately.
I've lived in Chicago 1 year myself, and I remember the winter. It was pretty painful.
Yes, winter is coming. We all know.
Awesome. So, Joe, could you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in a small town in central Illinois, and then moved to Chicago for college. Spent 4 years here, and then actually moved to China for a year. I did a year in Shanghai working and living, and then when I moved back to Chicago about 2 years ago this month, actually, I started working for a tech startup that's called Spot Hero. So it's on-demand parking, similar to an Uber or any other on-demand product, where you can find parking on your phone to wherever it is you're going and pay for the spot on your phone at a discounted rate. A lot of stuff on the side. Airbnb, have a few blogs, my own personal one, joeanhalt.com, and a few other e-commerce stuff that I'm trying to start up. So my background is pretty broad in kind of technology, creative. I studied advertising at school and been traveling what seems like nonstop since 2007. That's kind of when the travel bug hit me. I took my first trip to classic American stereotype, but I took my first trip to Rome and Paris after I graduated high school, and been traveling ever since.
Awesome. That sounds great. So did you learn any Mandarin while you were in Shanghai?
Yes, I did learn a little bit. I took lessons for about 4 months,
Cool.
and I was pretty good at taxi Chinese and restaurant Chinese. But since that time, it's kind of gone to the wayside. But I can still order a beer. So whenever I'm back, I can at least do that.
Okay, well that's not unimportant.
Yes, exactly.
I was just looking at your website, and one of the things I like is you write that you try to say yes as much as possible.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
So yeah, I actually, when I was abroad, I came across that book. It's not Yes Man, but I forgot who the author was, from the UK, and he kind of did a year of yes, and I read it, and I really enjoyed the takeaways. And I'm someone that loves adventure and traveling and experiencing as much as I can. So a lot of times when you're in the position to you decide if you want to do something or not, I try to lean on the side of saying yes and experiencing whatever it is that's at my doorstep. And it's been, I've gotten myself into some crazy situations, some not go situations, but I'd say more times than not, I'm very pleased with saying yes.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're someone who's trying to make the max out of life. So that's definitely really cool. I can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So let's talk about Airbnb. How did you get started with it?
I first heard about it when I was living abroad. Two of my friends, they mentioned it randomly in conversation, and like, oh yeah, we rent out our spare bedroom for Airbnb guests, and didn't really know what it was. Didn't really think too much about it. Moved back to the States and started working for Spot Hero, this startup. And the founders, actually, when they were first starting out, they didn't have a lot of money to work Obviously, they weren't getting paid for that, so they had to find other ways of income, and they started renting out their places on Airbnb to make it and to get by. And so, being engulfed in that kind of startup world and jumping onto things as soon as I can, I started looking more into it and started renting out my place on Airbnb. The first few months were kind of slow going. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then just started getting more requests. More guests started staying at my place. Started interacting with them more. I've gotten some really good feedback and some good user ratings. So it's just kind of been a steady incline for the past kind of year. And even in the last 6 months, I'd say it's really picked up, where I've had consistent guests coming and going, and I've really enjoyed getting to know them. And the entire hosting process has been more fun each time, and I've been learning more about it and kind of what makes a complete experience. So it's been a really, really fun journey the past kind of year and a half.
So you started when the people at your work started doing Airbnb to enable them to work on their startup, correct?
Exactly. So it's kind of they used it as a money-making type
Right.
business, so they could make some money through Airbnb while building the startup.
And that's what I find really cool about Airbnb. It enables you to do things that you otherwise wouldn't been able to do because of lack of financial support, right? So
Exactly.
I've used Airbnb to travel, and some people have used it to pay their mortgage or renovate their house. And it sounds like your colleagues have used it to be able to start a startup, which is really cool.
Exactly. And so I kind of saw what they were doing and how they were being pretty successful with, with making some money from that. So initially it was like, oh, maybe I can make some extra cash, and with that extra cash, I can start traveling more. And that's been working out really well.
What type of listing do you have?
I have a private room and also a shared space, a couch that I rent out.
Do you have two listings, or is it one combined listing?
It's two separate listings. I've never double booked where I have someone staying in the private room and the couch. Actually, I take that back. I did have my first double booking where the guy on the couch and the private room overlapped. So for 2 nights, I had 2 guests. So that was actually kind of a cool moment, and it worked out. It worked out really well.
So if you have a guest who stays on your couch, then you're staying in your own room, and if you have somebody in your room, then you stay on your couch. Is that how it works?
Yeah, pretty much. Oftentimes, if my room is booked, sometimes I'll either travel, stay at a friend's house, stay at my girlfriend's house, or stay on the couch. So I have quite a few options if I do book my room.
Right, got it. How's it been going? You said you had a bit of a slow start, and then after a few months, more and more bookings started coming in. Did you do a lot to sort of try and improve your listing, or?
Yeah, it kind of caught on. I'd say a year ago is when I had my first few guests, and then in the winter, obviously Chicago isn't as much of a destination or travel city, so I knew it was going to be kind of slower, and that's what Mark and Jeremy, the two co-founders of Spot Hero and the guys who I kind of picked up Airbnb from, they kind of told me that along the way too. So I wasn't too concerned with not as many bookings here and there. But then when it did start picking up, it was the summertime. People started traveling to the city more, since my location isn't, as close to the downtown area as others. It's a bit cheaper. So people were willing to spend a little less and not be as close to downtown.
Right.
And so with those first few guests, I tried to make the experience, as best as I could. I greeted them, I got to know them, I asked them if there's anything I could do to make their experience better. I tried to be, the city guide and tell them the best places to go. That's another cool thing that I think makes me a good guest is, I love Chicago so much that I love showing off the city to anybody that comes. It doesn't matter if you're an Airbnb guest or my friend visiting from a different city. I just love telling people about all the cool spots in Chicago because I love finding cool new spots. And so as I kept getting more and more guests, and I got some really good reviews, obviously that's more attractive to people browsing online. If they see a spot that has good reviews, then they're more inclined to reserve. So
right.
as I was getting more guests, I was getting more good reviews, and so it just seems that that's kind of the winning. That's how you kind of win at Airbnb is you create a good experience and they give you good reviews, and people are more inclined to stay at your place. And then obviously after that, they can start raising the price and making a business out of it, which has been a really cool process.
And do you recommend people the architectural tour on the boat?
I don't feature that, but I definitely say that in passing. That's a great tour. Actually, I should put that in. I have like a welcome email that I send before they come with all like the logistics and stuff like that and suggestions. But I should put that as a suggestion to check out for sure.
So I spent a year and a half in the Windy City myself, and that was definitely one of my favorites. Just doing that boat tour, and it's really interesting to hear the history about all the different buildings and what they were used for and how they've changed and everything.
Yeah, I've done that tour a couple times now, and every time I take it, it's just been really, really awesome.
Great. So do you always meet your guests in person?
I'd say 85-90% of the time I do meet them. There have been a few instances where I've been out of town, and I do have another roommate, which I forgot to mention, but he there have been a few times where he's kind of the only one that interacts with them. And my roommate, Rich, he's been great through this entire process. He helps out whenever I need a hand. If they need to get into the place or they have a question, he's usually been there to help them as well.
Right. So when somebody stays at the couch, do you share the profit with him, or?
Yep. So basically we cut it, if we have a guest on the couch, we cut it 60-40, where I get a little bit more just because for tax purposes, obviously it's in my name, so I should get a bit more so I can pay for the taxes. And then if I have a guest in my room, we split it 70-30.
Okay. Sounds like you have a pretty fair deal going on then.
Yeah. We've talked about it. He's one of my best friends, and likes Airbnb just as much as I do. So it's been a good kind of, I guess you could say, he's been a good working partner, whatever.
Awesome. So you've been doing this for a year and a half. You must have had quite a few guests so far. So can you recall one really positive experience and one negative experience, if you have any, or maybe like an awkward experience or whatsoever?
Yeah. Actually, I have two great stories.
Awesome.
So my first one, or one of the good stories, is this girl from Italy, from Sardinia. Her name's Michaela. Really sweet girl. She came to Chicago in the winters, like February. So think of like the worst of the worst Chicago winters, like snow and wind and sleet and just really shitty. She's visiting one of her friends in Chicago for 2 weeks, and when she lands, her friend just doesn't respond to her and pretty much bails on her, and so she has nowhere to go. She has no friends, and her one friend isn't responding to her, and she calls me up, or messaged me on Airbnb that night and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a place to crash for 2 weeks. Do you think I could crash?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And she has a hotel for the first 2 nights, and she's like, "I can come check out the place tonight to see if it's okay." And bear in mind, this is actually New Year's Eve, so December 31st.
Oh,
this is
God.
when this is happening, and so that night she comes to check out the place to see if it's okay. Meet myself and Rich. We meet. I hear her story. I'm like, "Man, that's so shitty. I'm so sorry to hear that." We agree that this place is cool. She can stay there for 2 weeks, starting, I think, January 2nd. And so that night, she obviously has no friends, nothing to do. I was going to my friend's New Year's Eve party. I invite her to come along. She comes. We have a great time. I introduce her to all my friends. She parties. We party. And it was great. And then she stays for 2 weeks, and we become good friends. She actually cooks. Rich and I, my roommate, she cooks us some meals. We take her out. We grab some deep dish. We get some gelato, and we become like good friends. And so that was like a really, really good experience. We still keep in touch through Facebook, and she always says if we ever go to Sardinia, we have a place to stay. So that was a really, really cool experience through Airbnb.
That's awesome. I was kind of hoping this would end with, and now we're married.
No. It wasn't quite like that, but that would be pretty funny. Nothing like that has ever happened.
But
and then the only
that's a cool story.
yeah, I mean, it was just so cool, and I felt so bad for her with kind of coming into a city not really. Her friend kind of bailing, like she flew like literally like, thousands of miles across the country to meet with her friend, and he just kind of like bailed on her. So I felt really bad, and I just wanted her to enjoy the evening. I wanted her to enjoy Chicago, so I did everything in my power to do that. So it was a good time.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good story.
So I guess a bad experience, and this experience wasn't bad at all, but it was just just kind of funny and interesting to meet somebody who had never been to Chicago before. And this gentleman was in Chicago for the weekend. He was going to a conference nearby my place, so the location worked out great. And he grew up in Georgia, in the South, the southern part of America, and he didn't really get out much. And his idea of Chicago is it's very dangerous, and you have like basically there's a chance that you could get into a gunfight and potentially lose your life. And coming from the South, they have very different gun laws and concealed carry. You can carry a gun as long as it's concealed in any public place, and he didn't know what that was like in Chicago. And so I'm sitting there like, okay, does this guy have like a gun on him? And I didn't want to ask him that because I was afraid if the answer was yes, I wouldn't really feel comfortable with someone being armed in my place.
Fair enough.
And so I didn't ask the question. He was a very nice guy, and he just was a bit naive to the entire geography and how Chicago, runs. Like obviously we do have our rough parts and violence-filled areas, which is primarily the South Side, and I live very far from those areas. But he's someone who doesn't travel much, who doesn't get out much, who really only hears about South Side shootings in Chicago. Maybe he doesn't really know. And so we talked. I got to know him a bit more, and I felt comfortable with him staying at my place. But that was kind of the only, I guess, awkward situation where I wasn't sure if this guy was like, packing a gun or whatever he had.
And you never did you find out?
I never found out. And honestly, I don't really care at this point. It was months ago, and he had a good experience. It was actually his first Airbnb experience, so he was also a bit curious and anxious as to how it worked.
Maybe that's why he brought a gun.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but we met. I greeted him at the door, and we talked for maybe 30, 45 minutes, got to know him, he got to know me, and after that, he was really, really cool, and he was really comfortable with the entire experience. So it ended up being really great. So that was kind of the only awkward moment, but I've never had any terrible experiences, nothing even close.
And when you started hosting, were you apprehensive about it? Were you worried about just letting random people from the internet into your house, or?
Honestly, not really, because I trust Airbnb's, how they kind of background check people, and you have to link up your Facebook, LinkedIn, phone number, and also you can build that rapport before you book somebody. So I don't really have any instant book type features just yet. So I think even through like a short interaction through a chat, you can know. You can tell a lot about somebody, and also I feel like people who are traveling and who do use a service like Airbnb, it takes a certain kind of person, like someone like you or myself. We're all kind of like-minded people, and so I trust. I just trust the system, and I guess just a trustworthy guy, and believe that I'm gonna have good experiences with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you like to look at the positive sides of life. It seems so. That makes a lot of sense. I'm the same way. I just started out, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to try it, and we'll see. I didn't make any assumptions on what people will be doing, or what the dangers or the risks were whatsoever. And I've hosted over 150 maybe groups now. And
wow. Nice.
I've never had any issue at all.
Yeah.
So do you usually get into a conversation before you accept a booking, or?
Yeah, just maybe like a few back and forth, kind of like maybe what they're doing in the city, what they want to do, and try to, if they have any questions about the location of the city or getting around, we kind of go back and forth. But that's kind of it in terms of talking before the booking happens. And then when they book, I usually have a welcome email that I send to them with kind of the rundown of logistics, how to get there, the keys, and like make sure to lock the door and be respectful of the neighbors, and the laundry and the Wi-Fi, and all those logistics that I'm sure all the Airbnb hosts out there, they have their own way of communicating that.
Awesome. So do you have any good advice for our listeners on how to be a good host?
I guess just try to make the experience as enjoyable and as frictionless as possible for your guests, so you do kind of get that good rating and just be kind of the ultimate host. So try to think through everything from the greeting to the checkout process, and make sure that you kind of have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. And then just, I guess, going above and beyond. So maybe do like a welcome basket, or I know some people that have picked up their Airbnb guests from the airport. I usually offer free laundry if they want to. I have an interactive map that I email out with all the cool spots. I'll definitely add the architecture tour. I need to do that. But just making the process as frictionless as possible and as smooth as possible. And of course, the biggest thing is just learning from all your guests. So one of my guests who I just had a long stay, Richie from Australia, he stayed at my place for 5 weeks. He was taking an intensive IO course, and he suggested that we update the photos because the photos didn't really do the space justice. And so I'm going to do that. So that was good feedback from him.
Right. Did you use the Airbnb service?
I didn't actually. That's just because I like photography and I like taking pictures of places. So I feel like this is a good platform for me to, practice that skill. And just kind of update the photos as need be. I actually need to do that this weekend. I've changed my place around, and it's actually looking a lot nicer. So I need to take some updated photos.
Yeah.
Photos are a huge thing too.
Oh, absolutely.
And Airbnb has that great free service where they have people come out and take photos of your place. So if you're not, an experienced photographer, or you don't know what you're doing, definitely get somebody at your place to take a good quality photo.
Right. And I think the Airbnb changed the way that you see the listings now, because if you search on Airbnb, you'll see the first listings that come up. You see the first picture, right? The first picture that you put up, but there's an arrow now that you can sort of scroll through all the other pictures without actually clicking and going through to the listing.
Exactly.
So whereas earlier on it used to be really important to have a really good first picture, because that will determine whether people click on it and check out your listing. But now I think a lot of people, what they do is they browse through the listings on the search space, and they look at every single picture. So now I think it's become even more important to have all the pictures in there, like every room, every angle. So do you have some pictures of the outside as well, like the neighborhood or?
I do actually, because my area or my apartment in Chicago is actually pretty cool in that I have like a little yard in the back. So there's like a green space where you can hang out, have a beer, have a drink, and I kind of feature that quite a bit. But I've read a lot of articles too on like how to improve your Airbnb spot, and a lot of people say take as many pictures as you can and like get like detail orientated, and maybe some other features. Like I have a vinyl player with records in my room, in my living room, that people can use, and even just taking a picture of that and making it look cool just adds a bit more character to your place and kind of stand out from the crowd. And with this new redesign that Airbnb came out with, like you said, Jasper, it's much more photocentric, and they're big believers in showcasing these places and using photography as a huge tool to attract guests. So really utilize your photography as much as you can with your spot. I can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. And one good tip that I picked up somewhere on the web, I never thought about this, but often people ask me if I have fast Wi-Fi. And so I think my Wi-Fi is pretty fast, so I'll just say yes. And then I read this article online, and this guy he did a speed test of his Wi-Fi, and then he took a screenshot and he put that as a picture. So I thought that was a pretty creative way to add some information in your pictures to actually have a screenshot of your internet speed. Because
that's a really good idea.
One of the things that's important is to have your listings to be a very accurate representation of your house, so that people know what to expect, and that's how you can get great reviews if people if you meet people's expectations, and then you go a little bit further by giving them something that they wouldn't expect, right? That's what makes a great experience. So in order to improve accuracy, I think putting the internet speed up there is a nice little extra addition.
Absolutely. That's a really good idea. I think I should do something like that.
Yeah, it only takes a minute, Just go to speednet.net, I think it is. Run the test, take a screenshot, that's it. Easy.
Cool.
So did you ever use Airbnb when you were traveling, or?
Yeah, actually, I've only used it once, unfortunately. I want to use it more. But the one time I did it, it was like really, really awesome. I went to Nashville, Tennessee for the weekend with 3 other people. So there was a group of 4 of us, and we found an entire house to ourselves pretty much. And it came out to like maybe $75 for the entire weekend for each person. And it was really great. The host was a bit more detached. It was more of kind of like an extra home that instead of renting monthly, he rents on Airbnb by the day to a bit of a revenue boost there. And so he kind of had a keypad on the door, so you could just key in without him being there. And he had like a printed PDF out on the kitchen table when we got in of kind of the house rules and all that stuff. So it was very hands-off, but it was still a great experience. And the place was really, really nice at a really great price.
Awesome. So all in all, I think you sound like you're a big fan of Airbnb. You had great experiences. And
absolutely.
It's what do you do with the extra income that you make?
I travel a lot. So this summer I went to Peru for about 2 weeks and traveled around the country. I was in New York for an entire week last week. I do some weekend trips here and there to smaller cities around Chicago, but I'd say the primary income goes towards traveling, just because I love it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So before I let you go, I noticed one article in your blog, joeanhalt.com. It says, "My best friend was homeless for 4 months." An interview.
Yes.
It just kind of sparked my curiosity. Could you give us just a quick summary of what this story is about?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So one of my best friends and my current roommate, Rich Hebron, after university, he wasn't really sure what he wanted to do. And for the longest time, he just had this kind of keen interest about homelessness and learning more about it and trying to fix the problem. And he really had no idea, didn't have much knowledge about it. So he thought, well, why not be homeless for 4 months and really live day to day as a homeless person in the city of Chicago? So I think from about September or maybe August to November, for about 4 months, he was homeless in Chicago. And he learned a lot about the day-to-day, the grind, the mental and physical strain it has on you. And he's in the process of writing a book about it. And also he founded a nonprofit called ProjectPrimetime.org, kind of in the same lines of not really understanding what you want to do after school and kind of taking charge of your life. A bit different than the homeless experience, but he kind of combines the two really well. And yeah, Rich is a very like-minded person. Kind of goes with the mentality of living life to the fullest and doing what you want when you want. And we feel that we have the privilege and the opportunity to do that. And him choosing to be homeless was just kind of a really, really amazing experience for him. That if you want to learn more, please visit his blog. It's richhebron.com, richhebron.com. Actually, I think it's richardhebron.com. But yeah, it's a really cool story. That's kind of the quick explanation, I guess.
Wow, that's pretty incredible to put yourself in that position for 4 months, and he was sleeping on the street.
Yeah, he slept on the street at airports. He actually was in the shelter system for about 2 months, and he has some really interesting stories. But he has a few journals on his website from his. He has a few near-death experiences that are very, very interesting and engaging.
God.
So I suggest if you have some spare time, check that out.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. And I see he's raised a Kickstarter campaign for his that's for his book. His book, right? Yeah. Awesome. That's an incredible story. All right, man. So thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a really fun chat. And why don't you tell our listeners one more time where they can find out more about you?
Yeah, so I kind of live online at joeanhalt.com. That's JoeAnhalt.com. That's kind of where I house all of my projects, my personal blog that I need to update actually with a new Airbnb post. What Airbnb has taught me about being an entrepreneur, this chat has made me re-energize myself to actually get that post out. So that's coming in the next few days. You can sign up on my mailing list there. So anytime I post new content about Airbnb, the startup life, traveling, you can all find it at joeanhalt.com.
Awesome. So everybody make sure to check that out. I can tell you that he has some interesting stuff going on. So check it out. And if you ever want to stay in Chicago,
too.
Joe's Couch.
I got a spot.
Joe's Couch near Wrigleyville. That's the baseball stadium, is it?
Yep, where the Cubs play.
Right, exactly. So, really cool, man. Thank you so much. And as always, if you want to find out more information about Airbnb hosting, getpaidforyourpad.com is the place to go. You can download free chapters of our Amazon bestselling book, and you can also get the audiobook for free at getpaidforyourpad.com audio-book. So with that, I'm gonna finish up the show, and we'll be back every Monday and every Thursday. Goodbye, everybody.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.